everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brittany of BrittanyJJones.com. In today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to sew a single welt pocket. Let's get started. To demo a single welt pocket, I will be using pattern pieces from Vogue 2069. The pattern pieces that I'm using is pattern piece number 7. This is the pocket lining. Pattern piece number 5, this is the welt. Pattern piece number 6 is the pocket, and pattern piece number 4, this is the back pattern piece. The first thing that we want to do is go ahead and reinforce the corners for the welt. And we're going to do that by stitching right along the stitching lines here that we transferred from the pattern. Once we get to the small and large dots, we will pivot. And again, we will just continue stitching right along the stitching lines. Let's go ahead and do that now. Once you have stitched along your stitching lines, yours should look similar to this. It's very important to make sure that you stop right at your dots and pivot. Do not go past them. Go ahead and do that, and let's move on to the next step. Next, we're going to grab our welt, and you should have applied interfacing to that. And so now we're going to fold it with wrong sides facing. Just want to fold it in half like so. You can give it a light press if you would like, and then we can baste right along the seam lines. So I'm going to be basting right here from this dot, pivot and come across, and then pivot and go to the next dot. Go ahead and baste that now. Once you have basted along the seam line on your welt, now we're going to trim this long edge down to 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, you want to go ahead and grab your back pattern piece, and on the outside here, so with the right side facing up, we're going to take our welt and we're going to place this seam line here along the lower stitching line of the welt, matching up the small dots. So again, the lower stitching line here, we're going to match up the seam line from the welt to the lower stitching line, and then we can pin that in place. All right, once you have it pinned, it should look similar to this. I have the seam line here pinned to the lower stitching line, and so now we're going to baste from small dot to small dot. Let's baste it now. All right, now that we have our welt basted on, let's go ahead and grab the pocket lining. Here's my pocket lining here, and with the right sides facing, so I put my markings and lines on the wrong side. So with the right sides facing, you want to match up that stitching line here with the previous one that we just basted on. So go ahead and grab your pins. You want to pin through the small dots, same way that we just did for the welt. Okay, now we can go ahead and stitch from small dot to small dot. Let's go ahead and do that now using our regular machine stitch. All right, once you have your pocket lining stitched on, it should look similar to this. And again, we just stitched right along that previous stitch right over the welt. Let's go ahead and trim this down now to 1/4 inch. All right, once you have it trimmed, yours should look like this. And again, I have the pocket lining right sides facing right over the welt like so. So this is what yours should look like now. Let's move on to the next step. The next thing for us to do is slash along the line between the small dots, and then we'll be clipping diagonally to the small and large dots at the corner. As you can see here, I forgot to transfer my line. So if you did the same thing, just go ahead and grab your pattern piece. It's not too late. We can still transfer this slash that's right here in the center of the welt stitching. We need that. So let's go ahead and transfer that now. I'm going to match up my large dots and just transfer that line. All right, I have my line transferred, so now we need to slash along the center line. Make sure that you stop once you get to the points, and then you just clip diagonally to the large and small dots. Okay, so this is how yours should look here. Once you have that done, now we can go ahead and turn the pocket and these little triangle ends here to the inside. So let's just go ahead and put everything toward the inside. Okay, we can go to the pressing station. You want to press the lining away from the welt. And again, make sure that you have these little triangle ends to the inside. And so this is what the welt should start to look like. We're not quite done yet, but this right here is what it should be looking like. So let's go ahead and press the lining away from the welt. And once we have that pressed, we can move on to the next step. All right, now that we have it pressed, we're gonna take this upper edge here and we're gonna take it and match it up with our pocket. So this is pattern piece number 6. And so taking the upper edge and also this upper stitching line, we're gonna put that together right sides facing. And we're going to match it up with this upper stitching line between those large dots and pin. Once you have it pinned, let's go ahead and stitch from large dot to large dot. Let's do that now. All right, once you have stitched the upper edge between the large dots together, now we can go ahead and pin these triangles here that we clipped, the welt as well as the lining and the pocket together along the sides, the lower edge and the other side, and then we can stitch that together. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin here again along the sides and the lower edge. And now we can go ahead and stitch. Again, you can back stitch at the beginning and at the end, but just make sure that you catch in this triangle edge as well as this welt and just stitch along the side and the lower edge and the other side of the pocket and pocket lining. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, once you have it sewn, yours should look similar to this. If you like, you can do an optional 1/4 inch stitch in the seam allowance, or you can use your serger and just finish off the raw edges. Once you have it all sewn, yours should look similar to this, and you now have a working single welt pocket. Well, that is all for the tutorial. I really do hope that it was helpful. If you would like to see more how to sew tutorials from Simplicity, there's a link below that will take you to the full playlist. Until next time, blessings everyone. Bye.